Hello, everybody. The title of my research is How Cultural Mindset Influences Creativity in New Product Development. My name is Jungim Mun from University of Massachusetts, Boston. The creativity construct is typically defined as the idea generation, insight, or problem solutions. There are two dimensions of creativity. The first dimension is originality. It is the degree to which outputs are perceived as new and different. The second construct is usefulness. It is the extent to which outputs are perceived as relevant and useful. The idea generation is a key component in new product development because the success of new product largely depend on the creativity of the ideas. In respect to culture, Western culture focused on individualistic values which encourage uniqueness. So, individualism has been thought to be preferable when a creativity outcome is desired. However, US patent data reveals that the number of patents registered by Eastern countries are in line with Western countries. Moreover, the data illustrate that more than half of the companies which ranked high in terms of the number of patents in Eastern countries. The goal of my research is to solve these contradictions between theory and practice by looking at the conditions under which collectivistic values may lead to better creative outcomes than individualistic values. So here are the table of number of patents granted by US Patent Trademark Office. If you see here, many companies from Eastern cultures, from South Korea, for example, rank 2, Japan, number 3, Canon, and number 6, LG Electronic Inc. from South Korea, ranked high. And this table shows number of patents from origin. So the number 1 is Japan, number 2, Korea, South Korea, number 3, China, and number 5 is Taiwan. Now, let's move to theoretical background. The first part is cultural orientation and creativity. In Eastern culture, collectivistic values are associated with global or holistic thinking. So, it is positively related with creativity. However, interdependent orientation can decrease creativity due to conforming tendencies. In Western culture, individualistic values are associated with concrete thinking. So it could negatively relate it with creativity. However, independent orientation leads to greater divergence and novelty of ideas. The second part of theoretical background is cultural level. People construct different levels of representation depending on psychological distance, which may take a temporal, spatial, or social form. The representation of high control levels is relatively abstract, whereas the representation of low control levels is relatively concrete. And moreover, high control levels impact creativity more positively than low control level. Taken together, here is my hypothesis. Individualistic value may enhance creativity, but in a low control context, it will represent concrete thinking. Thus, such a mindset is less likely to increase creativity. On the other hand, the collectivistic value of interdependence may decrease creativity. But in a high cultural context, it will represent abstract thinking. Thus, such a mindset is more likely to increase creativity. Formally stating, H1, in a high cultural context, an interdependent cultural mindset will lead to greater idea creativity than an independent cultural mindset. Whereas, in a low cultural context, there will be no difference in idea creativity across cultural mindset. This is study 1, cultural mindset and temporal distance. The purpose is to test the effect of cultural mindset. The design was 2x2 between subject design. The cultural mindset has two conditions, independent versus interdependent. Temporal distance has two conditions as well, near future versus distant future. The participants were 79 undergraduate students from a large university. For the manipulation of cultural mindset, individualistic conditions have instruction to write one sentence for 3 questions. Please describe yourself. Why do you think you are not like most other people? Why do you think it might be adventurous to stand out from other people? For collectivistic condition, participants were asked to answer for 3 questions like this. Please describe the groups to which you belong. Why do you think you are like most other people? Why do you think it might be adventurous to blend in with other people? For the manipulation of temporal distance, high construct condition, 1 year and 6 months were used. For the condition of low control level, 1 month and 1 day were used. For the focal creativity task, the participants were asked to read the following scenarios. There will be an opening for another business store to move into the student union 1 month versus 1 year from now. Imagine yourself in the role of decision maker. You have 1 day versus 6 months to brainstorm ideas before you have to make a final decision. 2 independent judges who were blind to experimental conditions and hypotheses rated each participant ideas. For originality, 3 9-point scales were measured: original, unique, fresh. For usefulness, 3 9-point scales were used: useful, effective, worthwhile. In order to measure overall creativity, I averaged 3 originality items and the 3 usefulness items. In the distant future conditions, interdependent group generated more creative ideas than independent group. In the near future conditions, no significant difference was found. So, H1 is supported. In study 1, ideas with interdependent mindset were more creative relative to ones with independent mindset in a distant future conditions. But no difference in idea creativity was found in a near future context. Study 1 resolves the contradictions between the creativity literature and practice. Study 2, cultural mindset and spatial distance. The purpose of study 2 is to replicate findings from study 1. The design was a 2x2 between subject design. Cultural mindset has two conditions, independent versus interdependent. Spatial distance has two conditions as well, near versus distant location. The participants were 62 undergraduate students from a large university. The manipulation for cultural mindset was identical with that of study 1. For the manipulation of spatial distance, in high control level, California was used. For low control level, Europe was used because the participant lived in New York State. For the focal creativity task, the following scenario were given to the participant. There will be an opening for another business store to move into the student union at University of New York or California 1 year from now. Imagine yourself in the role of decision maker. You have 6 months to brainstorm ideas before you have to make the final decision. 2 independent judges who were blind to experimental conditions and hypotheses rated each participant idea. For originality, 3 9-point scales were measured: original, unique, and fresh. For usefulness, 3 9-point scales were measured: useful, effective, and worthwhile. In order to measure overall creativity, I averaged 3 originality items and 3 usefulness items. In the distant location, interdependent condition has more creative ideas than independent condition. However, in the near location, no significant difference was found. So H1 is supported again. Study 2 conceptually replicate the effect of study 1, utilizing geographical-based control. An interdependent cultural mindset leads to greater creativity than an independent mindset, but only when the decision pertains to a distant location. This is contribution of my research. My findings provide one explanation as to why Asian companies often outperform Western companies in the new product development and with respect to proxies such as patent. 2 studies as to the creativity literature by highlighting boundary conditions, showing that in certain cases, adopting a collectivistic mindset versus independent can actually lead to increased creativity. Therefore, the current paper begins the process of theoretically resolving the apparent contradiction between the creativity literature and industry. Thank you for listening to my research.